We didn't just lose our fathers. We lost the part of ourselves that tells us what's right. I know you feel it. In the way people speak with no conviction. In how no one trusts anything. Not government, not religion, not even each other. And beneath all of it is this hollow feeling. A feeling like no one's in charge. Not out there and not in here. The truth is, we are a fatherless culture, not just in homes, but in spirit. We've torn down the archetype of the father and replaced it with nothing. Carl Jung saw this coming. He warned that when the symbolic father dies, when Logos collapses, chaos rushes in, not just on the outside, but deep within the psyche. This isn't just a political problem or cultural, it's psychological. We've lost the internal principle that gives life structure. In this video, we're going to explore what happens when Logos, the force of truth, order, and responsibility, disappears from the collective mind, and why that vacuum is now being filled by something much darker. Most people think that the world is divided by left versus right, logic versus emotion, fact versus feeling. But Jung saw something deeper, a fundamental split within the psyche itself. A tension between two archetypal forces that shape everything we do. He called them Logos and Eros. Logos is structure. It's the principle of order, reason, and clarity. It separates things into categories. It draws lines, builds systems, defines boundaries. Logos is the force that says this is what's true and this is what's false. It's the masculine archetype in its purest form. Not male necessarily, but masculine in energy. And it shows up as the father. The one who gives law, discipline, orientation, and meaning through responsibility. Eros is connection. It's the principle of relationship, feeling, and union. It merges rather than separates. Eros doesn't ask what's true. It asks what feels right, what bonds people together, and what nurtures and holds. This is the feminine archetype, not female, but feminine in energy. It shows up as the mother, the one who gives safety, love, belonging, and emotional warmth. In a balanced psyche and a balanced society, these two forces work together. Logos provides the spine, and Eros provides the heart. But when one dominates or collapses, the other does not just grow stronger, it grows distorted. And that's what we're living through right now. The collapse of Logos, of truth, hierarchy, and discipline has opened the floodgates to unbalanced Eros. Feelings over facts, inclusion over discernment, emotional narratives over reality. It's not that Eros is bad, far from it. But without Logos to hold it together, Eros becomes chaos disguised as compassion. And as Logos fades from the cultural psyche, people lose more than clarity. They lose their sense of self. Because it's Logos that tells you who you are and what you're here to do. The tragedy is that most people don't even know these forces exist within them. They think the confusion is political or generational, but the truth is we are watching an ancient archetypal collapse, one that starts not in culture, but in the soul. When Logos collapses, when the symbolic father disappears from the collective psyche, the effects aren't just personal, they're civilizational. Because Logos isn't just about reason, it's about orientation. It tells us what's up and down, what's right and wrong, and what is sacred and what is profane. It's the inner structure that holds meaning together. Without it, we fall into what Jung called enantiodromia. Yeah, try saying that one 5 times fast. Enantiodromia is a pendulum swing into the opposite. Not balance, but overcorrection. And the result is chaos disguised as progress. You can see it in the way people talk now. Truth has been replaced by perspective. Discipline is labeled as toxic. Structure is considered oppressive. And any attempt to say this is better than that gets flattened by a wave of relativism. We no longer trust authority, and often for good reason. I mean, there's a lot to not trust nowadays. But we didn't just question the power, we burned the entire symbolic framework to the ground. And the result, we now have adults who think like children. They're impulsive, emotionally fragile, constantly needing validation. We have a culture that became allergic to hierarchy, even natural ones like competence, wisdom, or maturity. And we also have a spiritual vacuum, where ancient truths are mocked, but nothing meaningful replaces them. People tried calling this liberation, but it's not. It's regression. We haven't transcended the Father, we've just rejected him, without understanding what he represented. And when Logos dies, people don't become free, they become lost. They drift from one ideology to another, trying to find something solid. They follow trends like rituals. They join online tribes that offer the illusion of clarity. But beneath it all is the same quiet terror. No one is steering the ship. Not out there, and not inside. Because the collapse of Logos isn't just a political or cultural shift, it's a psychic wound. And it leaves the ego defenseless against the chaos of the unconscious. Jung warns that when we lose contact with the Father archetype, we lose our ability to contain the shadow. What rises in place of Logos is not peace, it's projection, rage, and hysteria. Because when the symbolic Father is gone, so is the inner voice that says, you're responsible, you're capable, and you must become more than you are. And without that voice, we don't rise, we sink. Nature abhors a vacuum, and so does the psyche. When Logos collapses, when the Father is symbolically exiled, something else will always rush in to take its place. But these substitutes don't bring order, they bring control. In the absence of inner authority, people seek external authority, something that feels powerful, something that tells them what to believe, how to act, and who to hate. This is where the false fathers rise. Ideology becomes the new lawgiver, not reasoned truth, but dogmatic certainty. Not this is true, but you're evil if you disagree. Influencers and gurus become modern priests. Charisma replaces wisdom, and branding replaces philosophy. The state becomes the parent. It promises protection and meaning in exchange for obedience. These are not fathers. These are masks worn by the shadow. Because unlike true Logos, which invites you to grow, confront yourself, and take responsibility, false authority asks only for submission. And the more chaotic and anxious a culture becomes, the more seductive that submission feels. People begin to crave control, not freedom. They want the world to be simple, moral, and black and white. And that's how mass psychosis emerges. Jung warned us about this. He saw that when the individual stops developing their own internal compass, their own Logos, They become vulnerable to collective possession. They don't think, they belong. They don't reflect, they repeat. They find security not in truth, but in groupthink. And the result is a world filled with adults who never individuated, who never became conscious of their own values, shadows, or potential. A world led by false fathers and filled with lost sons. But here's the final tragedy. The father wasn't overthrown because he was cruel. He vanished because we chose noise over wisdom. Now we live in a world that never stops speaking, but has nothing true left to say. If the death of the father is the roots of our collapse, then the healing doesn't begin with politics or protests. It begins within. Because the real task isn't to resurrect the institutions we once trusted. It's to rebuild the symbolic father inside of ourselves. Jung believed that every human being carries the potential for inner authority, an inner logos. But most people never develop it. Instead, they outsource it to religion, to ideology, to parents, or to systems. But when those collapse, the individual is left hollow, an adult in form, but still a child inside, waiting for someone else to tell them what to do. Individuation, which was Jung's core path to wholeness, is the opposite of that. It demands that we confront our shadow, accept responsibility, and define truth for ourselves, not in isolation, but in alignment with something deeper than opinion. And that's what the father archetype really is. It's not a tyrant, not a dogma, but the voice within that says, you are capable of more, and you are accountable to it. To restore the world, we have to restore the spine of the soul, not by returning to the past, but by becoming the thing we are missing. The Father is not coming back. You must become Him. Thank you for watching, and best of luck on your path towards integration.